come back on Wednesday night. Some of us do. But for too many people in the body of Christ, it's just become a thing to do. It's become the right thing to do. But there's no real desire when we come in for God. It's just a desire to do what's right. And see, that's the religious part about it, is if it's not about God, and if it's not about developing our relationship with God, and it's not really about Him, that means it's about us. And that makes it religious. Even the Pharisees did that. They criticized everybody else for what they were doing. They weren't doing right, but they were doing religious. They were doing what they knew to do, but their lives were not lined up with what they knew was right, right? Church has become, this is another thing he said, church has become a social club. We've become more interested in fellowshipping with each other than we have fellowshipping with the Father. More people in the world, in the church, in this church, have backed away from prayer opportunities because they'd rather communicate with each other. And I'm not pointing fingers and I'm not saying anything. I'm saying if that's you, you better think about it. Because this is how God sees the church. This is not what I'm saying. This is what God showed me. This is how He sees the church. And see, the church is supposed to belong to Him. Am I right? We're supposed to belong to Him. So if this is the way He sees the church of God, the body of Christ, then we have to make sure that when God speaks and says, this is what I see, that we make that internal effort to do what we can for our part. Am I right? We got to do our part, right? So He sees the church as a social club where they'd rather come and see each other than Him. A fashion show where everybody just wants to come and check out what everybody else has got on and see who's wearing the uptown stuff, who's dressed cool. I don't know if that really happens here that much, but I know it happens because I've seen it. He said church has become a concert. Become a concert where we just go and we just hear people sing. Because when we go to a concert in the natural, when we go really to a concert, we literally are going to see the group and hear their music. Is that correct? That's what happens when we go to a concert, right? We're going for the purpose of seeing that group. And see, that's the thing that God sees, is He said, you're going to see the show. Not that the people that are singing or playing music intend for it to be a show, but whether you see it as a show or not is due to what's in your heart. If that's the purpose for your coming. Music has to be good in a church anymore than, like he said this morning, they don't want to turn on the radio and hear bad music. We don't want to come to church and hear bad music. I know I don't. So we try really hard to make it good, but we're not making it good for you. We're making of excellence is what God expects from us, right? God said, I see my church as a babysitter for the children. Where people will send their kids to church so that they have a babysitter so they can go do what they want to while their kids are at church. And God said, I don't want people to send their church. I won't send their children. I want them to take their children. I want people to go as a family. If it takes going out and finding the lost parents and getting their kids in first, that's okay too. But after a while, we got to do something to win those mamas and daddies and get them in the house so that they can be here as a family. God said, sometimes I see my church as a pre-event venue. In other words, people come to church. And like I said when we were praying a minute ago, what they're really doing is satisfying the need to go to church so that they can really get to what they really want to go do. Like, if you want to go home and watch Dallas Cowboys play tonight, then church, in your mind, if you're not careful, can be the pre-event venue for what you really want, which is to watch the ball game. And in a few weeks, the Super Bowl's going to come up. And a lot of people will go to church, and they want to hurry up. They're watching their clock the whole time. I don't want to miss kickoff. I don't want to miss kickoff. You know, it's a pre-event venue. And the other thing that God said that He sees His church as is He said, I see my church as a den of thieves. You want to know how God sees stealing from him? When we talk about stealing from God, we're talking about tithes. Okay? Talk about tithes. And God said, I see my churches as den of thieves. In other words, they're a den would be a place where like lions would go and raise their babies and protect themselves from the elements, from other predators and things like that. It's where they go and hide and have shelter. And so we come in to worship the Lion of Judah. We come into his den. And yet, we're more like predators than we are like family. Come on now. Because doesn't a predator come to steal, kill, and destroy? Isn't that what the enemy is? He's a predator. He's looking for whom he can devour. I want to say something about stealing from God. And Pastor touched on it some this morning, so let me just rack this on. And then maybe he might not even have to do an offering revelation. I don't know. But God saw stealing as such an offense to him that number one of the 10 commandments is, thou shalt not steal. It was that important that he made it one of the 10. One of the 10. And then he went on to say that Satan was roaming around as a lion, seeking whom he may devour. And that same Satan he was talking about that wants to devour you, he also said is out to steal, kill, and destroy. 2 of those were commandments, stealing and killing. Thou shalt not do either. It was that important that he made them commandments. And then he said, if Satan has come to steal, let's stop right there. If he came to steal, then that tells you that stealing is a characteristic of Satan. It is a characteristic of Satan. Now, we know that all sin comes from Satan, right? Everybody knows that, right? Well, some people might not, but everybody in churches typically know that stealing's a sin. I want to ask you the important question right now. How many of you in the room just start rambling around through my purse?